Alrighty. So as I said, we can go ahead and get some questions into the Q&A and then we'll go ahead and get started from there. If not, I do have some FAQs that we can go over just looking at the system. But the main things that I want to hear from you guys today is like, what are the last things that you guys have done in Open to Close? Have you updated anything? Have you been working on your smart blocks? Maybe updating your task templates? Have you updated any of your your document templates, your date templates? How are things going as far as for building and setting up things in your system? How is that going? Just kind of want to put that out to the crowd for now. Cool. So we got a question. Wondering how to attach an email from the inbox to a property. I really wish that I could show this very clearly, but I'm not going to be able to because I do not have my email connected to this and we don't have a test email connected to it. But the what you're going to end up doing is you're either going to go about it in two ways. You're either going to go to the inbox, which is what I just did. Just clicked on the email inbox. If I collapse this view, it's just this little mail icon. We're going to click on that. Once we get into here, we're going to see, and I'll go to see, so I'll see if scheduled is going to let me see them. Okay, so this is what those emails, well, they're not going to look like that. The hard part with this is that I don't have a Gmail that I can use to connect it. If I connect my current Gmail that I have, you guys are going to see all of my client emails and a lot of that stuff is confidential. So it's a little difficult, but you will be able to open up the emails that are on this particular page and you can relate them back to a specific property if you need to. The other way that you can go about it is when you're actually on the property and you're using Gmail, you can go to that property. I'm going to go ahead and go to our 123 Ivy Lane. So once you're on this property, you can go over to emails. You can go to API emails. It's something that should be showing up here if you're connected to your Gmail account, and you can sync it to a specific label within your Gmail account. That's really helpful if you are going into Gmail and you're sorting out your emails into specific labels within the left-hand column of your Gmail account. Those are the two ways. Again, I really wish that I could show you it. Maybe we have a screenshot of it in our articles. Let me go ahead and take a look. Okay. Don't exactly have one in here, but let's see if Connect Your Email has any of it. Nope. Yeah, so we don't really necessarily have a photo of it or an image of what it exactly looks like, but those would be the two places if you could do it, that's where you would go, either to the inbox where here you're selecting that email and you can relate it back to the property, or you're going to go over to properties and you're going to sync it to a specific API tab. Okay, so if you're not seeing that, then most likely what is going to show up for the inbox specifically is going to be the ability to attach files to a particular property. Maybe you can't do it. I think that for us to use the API sync, you have to go into Gmail itself and you have to put it underneath the label. Kelly, have you had any experience with the Gmail? And like, do you know if it's, I think it is specifically, it has to be connected through like the label underneath
Yeah.
your Gmail account, correct?
Yeah, as far as I know, it's you create the label and then you, when you're in the transaction, under where the emails tab is, you have options that say, right there underneath property emails, it says API sync or API. There's two of them. The one says API sync and one says API something
Scan,
else.
API scan. So like to like
Maybe
refresh
so.
the list, I believe it's API scan.
And then,
Um,
and then
yeah.
that's where you would do it.
Yeah, I think that the only kind of functionality for the inbox here, think of this as like a window, you can look into it, but you can't really do much else other than that. You're not going to be able to go and label or sort them through there, but you can if you have attachments on that email. And I think that that's where my brain went when I read attach. I read, oh, attachments. Yeah, you can connect your attachments because if you do have like documents that you need to get to a specific property, you can attach those documents. It's just a matter of opening up the email, clicking on the attachments, and then from there you should have the option to sync it to a specific email or add it to, or I'm sorry, add it to a specific property from there. But I think I think that that's basically the limit. We're pretty limited with the Gmail integration as far as for what the view is in here. And that's just Gmail's limitation. It's not something that we would that we're limiting necessarily. Cool. So again, if you are connected to Gmail, so the first thing that you're going to want to make sure is that you have your Gmail account connected here. If it says authorize, if you're not connected to Gmail, then you're most likely not going to be able to see that option. I don't know if it's available for Microsoft. We don't have a lot of Microsoft users, and I don't work with a lot of clients who are using Microsoft, so I'm not sure. But if you have your Google Workspace account attached here, and you go over to any of your properties, any of the properties that you have in your account, you should be able to go over to email. And then underneath here, you should see API sync or API attach. We don't typically have like the ability to unmute for this, but Lou, if you want, you can always submit a ticket and we can come in and take a look at your account. I wouldn't be able to pull it up on here just because I don't have the ability to, but Kelly, why don't you pop into Lou's account and see if you can find the location for it if you want, if that works, and see if you can see it in his account, like see if the Gmail's connected correctly and see if we can see that API sync and then scan underneath one of the properties. That would be great. So I'll have Kelly go in and check your account really quickly right now and see if we see that option. But again, we need to make sure that Google Workspace's account first, attached first, and then you should be able to sync it. The other reason it might not be showing up, well, I don't think that that should be too much of a barrier, but I'm thinking like if you don't have any labels created within your Gmail account, and labels are just the little tabs that you can create. Here, I can actually do this. What are Gmail labels? Labels. Here we go. See if it can show us, here we go. Cool. So this is what an example of like where the labels are located and how you can create them. It's just a matter of saying create the label and then naming it yourself. So usually people, I suggest like you label it or you name it with like the address, the property address. Cool. And you should be able to see it from there. So that's what I would suggest first. So we'll have to take a look at your account and see from there, but we don't typically do audio on these types of calls. Unfortunately, I don't even think I have permissions to unmute. Cool. Any other questions that we have about emails? I know it's a little limited because I don't have anything connected within my open and close account. Cool. Alrighty. Well, I'll kind of wait to see if you guys have any other questions that you guys want to pop in there. I'll definitely pop open our FAQs that we had from last week. But if I see any questions come up, we'll go ahead and pivot to that. So it looks like, again, we're having questions about like, the API 400 error. It's a common error to get. It just happens when there's an update to security on Google's end. If you've updated your password, if you've logged in anywhere else, let's say you've logged in on your phone or you got a new phone or you logged in on a different computer, all of those types of things can kind of mess with the integration when it comes to email connectivity. And if you guys run into that issue, if you see that it says API error 400, definitely reach out to us in support. You're just going to go down to your little chat icon, send us a chat and be like, hey, this is the issue that I'm experiencing. I'm unable to, I'm unable to send out an email. What are the next steps that I need to take? And we'll send you out like the links and the information that we need to for that. Cool. Oh, we got a question on how do I subscribe? We're on trial. We want to subscribe. We've hit our 15 transactions. What do I do next? Like, how do I get to subscriptions? You're going to head over to your little person icon. You're going to go to plan and billing. Once you're on there, you'll see that subscribe button. You can select whatever plan you'd like to use to subscribe to, and then just say subscribe. So I usually suggest like if you just signed up for open to close, and let's say you signed up for the scale plan, and you don't find yourself really using any of the scale plan features, you didn't build for it, it's just not something that you're going to be baking into your process, always feel free to downgrade to Pro Plan or Grow Plan until you feel comfortable with going up to scale. Usually I see people who are using scale, people are needing like unlimited commission templates. They need unlimited intake forms. If you've got multiple states that you're taking care of, 4 intake forms might not be enough on the Grow Plan. So maybe, or maybe even on the Pro Plan, you're going to need unlimited commissions, like the commission templates, like I mentioned, or unlimited reporting. Maybe you're using your messaging feature a lot, or you want to start using those property triggers right away from the get-go. Those are usually the people usually the things that I see people using if they do end up subscribing to the scale plan. Ooh, so they were able to, oh, actually I see a question in the Q&A. In a previous class, you mentioned there's an archive tab, so you don't need to delete something in case you need it later. I don't see an archive tab in my open to close. So you'll have to create it, and it kind of depends on where you need it. So if we go down to our hammer icon and we get into our field editor, when we go over here and we're looking at our field groups, we're going to want to click on where it says groups. We're going to want to select add group. And this is how you're going to create a field group, and you're going to name it archive. And then here you'll have an archived field group. From there, you can move over fields into this section. You can see I have quite a number of fields in this section, but you can move them over to it. You can also create a field section for it that's called archive fields. So the idea is that you'd be creating that archived field group and creating that archive field section, moving your fields over. And then when you need to update those fields, like maybe you need to make it hidden, we'll click on edit for the field section. And we'll go ahead and say, we don't want to hide this. So we want to hide this particular, visibility. We want to hide this section. Or if you need to hide specific fields, you can click on the field itself. We're going to scroll down until we see visible. We're going to update that to hide. And then we'll scroll to the very bottom, say, I understand and update. And it's going to hide that particular field. Now, to see whether that field is hidden or not, you're going to have to click on the field itself, which is usually why I suggest hiding the field section instead, because that's just a lot more convenient, right? If the field section's hidden, then all of the fields within them are hidden as well. So that's kind of how you're creating that archive field section and then hiding those fields. That way you don't have to worry about them being asked or popping up on the front end. And then if you're talking about within your property tables, like you're looking at your property tables and you're like, oh, I don't want to delete out properties, but there are certain properties, canceled ones, canceled contracts, terminated contracts, that kind of thing. I want to be able to sort those out. You're going to either want to create you can create a table with all of your archived ones, or you can create a segment underneath here that's going to have your archived one. So like, here's an example. This is an archive list. I'd probably want to come in here and update my contract status and select all the things that I would do for this. So like listing withdrawn, sale terminated, I could say expired, canceled, expired, terminated, and I'll even select archived if that's one of my options. And then say close, and it's going to update that contract list. And now we'll see all the properties that have neither marked as any of these options for their contract status. So when it comes to archived, fields, archived properties, you're going to be creating those particular sections either in your field editor or on your property tables and segments. It's the same thing when we're looking at our email templates. Oh, sorry, our task templates or our document templates. We're going to be wanting to click on, our categories, and we'll create an archived category if we need to. Hey, I don't want to delete these email templates because, maybe I'll come back to them and I'll use them later. But I do want to have like an archived category. That way, if I ever need to sort them and see what email templates am I no longer using, why am I no longer using them, you have a category for them. And same thing with task templates. I would have a task template category that's just called archived if I was going to have any tasks that I'm like, I don't want to delete this task template because what if I come back to bringing it out? Especially for those of you who've signed up for open to close and you've looked through your task template or the task templates that we have preloaded in here, and you go, oh, Hannah, we don't really do, X, Y, and Z in my state, or maybe this isn't a part of the process that I want to manage just yet, right? So I want to put it away. that's where I would create an archived category as well. And it's just a matter of clicking on category, type in an archive, and then saying add. Cool. Okay. Looks like we got a follow up to the email question. Awesome. Let me take a look at this. More specific question would be, let's say we use OTC to send out an email to someone looking for information and they respond, or worse, send another email without responding. Sounds like our own option is to open up an email in Gmail, add the label so we can see it within the property. No way to tell. Yes. So regardless of anything, most of our clients, if not all of our clients, always have Gmail still open in one tab or another. So open to close is great for populating those emails. You want to use it to pull in your merge fields, to update your smart blocks, to make sure attachments, documents are attached correctly. That's where open to close like shines for creating that email. Once you send it out, all follow up, I would say you want to keep that in Gmail. Any follow-up that you need to do, keep it in Gmail. Unless it's, of course, you're sending out like a second reminder email. An example of that would be probably like if you wanted to send out the initial email that says like, hey, home inspection is going to happen on this date. And then a couple days before home inspection, instead of replying in that same thread, you want a fresh email to go to them that literally is titled home inspection due in 2 days or home inspection scheduled for 2 days, right? Like something like that. You can title it that. And in your reminder email would literally say like the home inspection's happening on this date. It's going to happen from this time to this time, either vacate the premise or whatever instructions you would share with them. So if you add any of the responses to the label, then you'll be able to see them in the property, but you send out the email from open to close. Okay. A response comes back. You'll need to go into Gmail. You'll need to make sure that you have the label created, and then you can move that particular email underneath that label. But like I said, any sort of email communication, I would still keep it within Gmail after the fact. They respond to you. If you need to respond back to them, I would still send it through Gmail. The idea behind using the label is so that when you're on the property itself, let's say someone else comes on to check onto your property, right? They don't have access to your email, so they can't see any of the emails that you sent. But let's say they go over here. If they need to see any emails that you have labeled or popped underneath that label, that's where you'd be able to see those responses at. Cool. Cool. Yeah. I mean, hopefully, eventually down the line, we can get Google to work with the integration a little bit better so that way we can have it that, it's a little bit easier. But at this time, it's just really hard. I wish that there was an easier way to relate back email threads to a property. And that's kind of where I was saying, depending on what plan you are on, will depend on, what you end up subscribing to. And one of the things that we can do now with our messaging feature, let me grab my 123 Ivy lane again. With our messaging feature, you can create a thread and that communication stays on here. And this would be, depending on whether or not this is a user or a contact, it sends it to them as an email. So when I sent this out, I sent this email or this message to Kelly. It said, this is a test. And then Kelly got that in her email. She read it and then she said, awesome. Hi, Hannah, this is an awesome test. She emailed me back and it came directly into the property. It was related underneath the correct property. I didn't have to do any extra steps to make sure that it was related. It just came back directly into this property as a response to my message. So it just really depends on what kind of communication you're sharing and what you're doing with your clients. If you want to send out a quick reminder and you've got the messaging tool because you're on the scale plan, I would definitely suggest trying it out with that. Ooh, I'm gonna have to turn on a fan in my room. Usually yawning means that I'm not getting enough oxygen. I am talking a lot though. I'm talking pretty quickly. But so that's another feature that I would use that might work as well, where you don't have to relay it back. So I sent a message to Kelly and it went to her email and she responded me through email. Now, within Kelly's email, she can label it whatever she needs to, but it doesn't come back into your Gmail account. it comes back directly into open to close. So it has nothing to do with emails or the messaging tool has nothing to do with emails. It has to do with this particular tool that we have with an open to close. It's just when I send out that message, when I create a new message and I send out a message from here, or I send it out based off of, I can go to the documents if I need to send a message through the documents, or if I need to talk about a specific task, I can use that @ message tool here. I can click on @. I can select Kelly from this list. So this is property contacts. I can select Kelly from this list. Here it's going to send it to Kelly. I'm not going to put any message here. Here I can type out, and essentially it's just like an email. I can send out the message to Kelly. It's going to go to her email. When she responds, it will come back into open to close underneath the messaging feature here, and it'll show up as a thread. And and we can kind of test it out. I can send another response to Kelly, but let me just say, Kelly, because we want to send it to Kelly again. We can select multiple people, but we want to send Kelly again. Second test. How does it look if I need to respond to your email? OTC. There we go. So then I can send this reply. So essentially it's basically using open to close as that bridge between. And this has nothing to do with labels. This is specifically using the messaging tool that's on the scale plan. So it has nothing to do with emails or labels or anything like that. It's just when I send out this message, if that contact does not have a portal, or I'm not sending into the portal, you could see it when I click on new message here and I click on send messages. Here, if it says user, they're a portal user. So either they're an agent, they're a buyer or a seller who has portal access, or they're an internal user. Property contacts is going to be all of the emails that are underneath those property contacts on the property. So if I go over to my contacts page, and I collapse this view, all of the people here, that's going to be what shows up here underneath property contacts. Let me know if that makes sense. Again, if you don't have the messaging tool, or if you're not on the scale plan, this might look a little, I think of this as like a sneak preview into it, but yeah. Awesome. Great question. Cool. Let's go ahead and take a look at the other ones that we have for our FAQs. Ooh, where do I find the last time an agent logged in? This is a great question. I think that we've talked about creating a strategy post on this, but we do have a new feature, relatively new. You can always see any of our new features by going to the change log here. We've had a couple different updates just last week, so I definitely suggest taking a look at that. But we're going to head down to our gear icon. We're going to get into our organization and users. Here you can see this is the last login for the internal team member. So this is our community team member. This is me logging in this morning. If we go over to agents, here we can see the last time the agent logged in. So if you ever need to check, are your agents logging in? When's the last time they logged in? If they said, hey, I submitted an intake form to you, and you know that they have portal access and that's how they submitted it, but you see that the last time they logged in was March, they may not have been using the right portal access, or they need to, update their password if they haven't logged in that long. And to update your password, it's just as simple as like going to open to close and then saying forgot password. That's it. Log in, forgot password, logging in. Cool. We have a PDF file and want to use it as a one sheet with an open to close. So yeah, there is no way to like create, if you guys have a PDF file, and you want to say like, that's what I want to use as my one sheet. There's no way to necessarily do that. You'd have to go into your one sheet and recreate your PDF underneath the one sheets that are here. And the one sheets have a lot of really great like tools with them. Like we can share any of our fields that we need to share. If we go to design, you can update the color, the design of it, how it shows up. If you wanted to add in a logo, you can add in a logo. For the layout, this is where we're going to be getting into like, how do we want our fields to show up? but also, do we want to share contacts? Do we want to share documents, property notes, tasks, any of that kind of information? It's just a matter of selecting those boxes if that's what we want to share. So I would definitely say look into how our one sheets work and kind of replicate whatever PDFs you might have in our one sheet template, and then use that. Because the great thing about one sheets, or the reason that people like one sheets, is because of the auto sending, right? It goes out once a week. You don't have to think about it. You say send, it goes out. It does its thing. Cool. All right, and then we have a submission from onboarding, and that one says, what are the benefits of having a post-closing tasks? What are the benefits of having multiple smaller task lists versus everything on one task list? I actually just talked about this with a client too. So as you guys know, one of the things that we recommend, and I'm going to go ahead and log out really quickly. I'm going to log into a different account really fast because the task templates in that other account are a lot more neat. So I can kind of just click on task templates, click on sort, and we can kind of look at them here. One thing that we suggested open and close, and we make this suggestion a lot, is that you should have these mini task templates that you have broken down for each one of your task template processes. And that includes like a post-closing activities, right? Your post-closing activities could be, making sure that you've updated your MLS, making sure that you've canceled or removed all reoccurring tasks. It could be making sure that you filed the property away correctly, making sure that you pushed over the documents correctly, or finalize sending over all of the documents into Google Drive, or SkySlope, or Dotloop, or Brokerment, whatever system you guys are using for document management. Post-closing tasks are helpful because it just helps you make sure that that transaction is wrapped up, right? Everything's been updated on it. The next time you might touch it is if you need to send out, what is it called? The settlement statement? Kelly, what's that document called that you'd send out the next year for tax reasons? Is this settlement statement? Am I getting that right?
Settlement statement or HUD or
Perfect. So there are
yeah,
gonna be a
one
couple.
more too. Yeah,
Yeah.
the same
And that,
same document.
yeah. And that might be something that you guys have to do, you know what I mean, at the end of the year. And so you might need to go back to that property. But if you go through and you make sure you have that property wrapped correctly, you have those post-closing tasks, it's going to just save you a lot of effort in the long run. But having your tasks split up like this, I mean, look at my HOA task. It's literally just like 2 tasks, I think. It's 2 tasks. The reason that you should have your tasks split up instead of having it in this long form, right? If you have one task template and it's got 52 tasks on it, you don't do every 52 of those tasks, right? What if there's not an HOA, but you have HOA tasks on that buyer task template? That's 52 tasks. Or what if the inspection was waived, but you've got, let's say 13 tasks on that task template that has to do with inspection? The whole idea behind having them broken down into these bite-sized pieces is that when your property gets populated, all the tasks that are on that property, those are tasks you need to complete. And if there are tasks that are not on that property, HOA is not included on that property, then you don't have to worry about deleting the task. You don't have to worry about going through the documents and going, wait a second, it says there's an HOA, but I'm pretty sure I said there wasn't an HOA. Now I have to go through and I have to look through all of my documents. I have to confirm with my agent. I have to make sure, absolutely there is no HOA. We don't need to reach out for documents, right? So the idea is that we want that transaction to really be custom tailored, only showing you what you need to complete, not showing you everything else in between. Like, again, if financing tasks aren't applicable, or if appraisal tasks aren't applicable, or home protection tasks aren't applicable, or inspection tasks aren't applicable, we don't want those to come on unless they are absolutely needed. Some other task templates that I can think of too that are in the similar kind of scope of this is like, for my inspection tasks, I'm only talking about the home inspection. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about whether there's a well, whether there's septic, whether there's a pool, or whether there's a roof or anything else that might be added on. I'm only specifically talking about a home inspection. And roof is probably not a great example because that's part of the home. But pool, septic, well, those kinds of things, those are additions. And if you need to order or you need to add that on, that's an addition to that inspection, I would have a separate task template for it. I'd have a task template that says well inspections, task template, septic inspection task template, pool inspection task template, if I needed to have them separate. Because again, if we only want the tasks that we want on the property should only be the tasks that you're checking off. And so that's the idea behind having a smaller task list. That's a really great submission from onboarding because, like I said, I just recently had that with a client where they even had their field sections. And I'm going to head over to my field sections right now really quickly. They had their field sections, all of their dates in one particular field section. And I always suggest having them split up because, again, if home warranty isn't applicable, then we don't need it on there. If the lead-based paint addendum, if the house was built, after 1978, and that we don't have to worry about doing that, then I don't want this field section to be on there, right? Because otherwise I have extra additional fields that I have to worry about and know, oh, wait, do I need this? Oh, let me double check. Wait, when was this house built? It says 2010, but why do I have my lead-based paint addendum here that says that I need to check this, right? So that's the idea behind even having your field sections broken down into these bite-sized pieces. Awesome. What API field maps do I need to create in order to link open to close to follow up boss? So it kind of depends. You can either create, it depends on what you want to do. So I'm going to go back over into the other account because I have follow up boss connected to that other account. Go. So when we're on the property itself and we're taking a look at that follow-up boss, here, if we're doing the contact sync and you want to sync the fields, this is where you're going to need that API mapping template. If you're going to be syncing with the deal and you want to use an API mapping template, let's say you're creating the deals, then I would say create a field mapping template for your deals as well. But those are going to be the two spots. You don't need one for the widget. I'm going to go ahead and head into my back end. So we'll click on my 3-line icon, head down to the hammer icon into templates, and then we'll go down to API field map templates. Here, we can see the type. So this is a deal type. If I open this up, the deal is just going to be these particular fields here. So the fields that are on the deal. The only time you need that API mapping template is when you are going to be creating the deal. If you're linking it, so the deal's already existing in Follow Up Boss and you're just connecting it to that deal, you don't necessarily need that API mapping template. You could definitely use one, but you don't necessarily need it because instead of pushing the details over, you're just syncing, you're just attaching it to that deal. So it just kind of depends on your use case, but I would create a API mapping template for the deal. And then the other one that you want to create is going to be for your contacts. Let me see. Here's a contact one. Now, contact works a little different, right? The deal fields are specific to what's happening with that transaction. The contact sync is more specific to the person itself. I see a lot of people kind of not doing this part because here's a field, spouse name. This is a great example. Birthday is another great example too. We don't track the spouse's name with an open to close. We don't track the birthday with an open to close. For the spouse's name, technically they would be another buyer or another seller on that property. They wouldn't have a specific field that we're entering in that data into. They would be a contact on that property. For birthday, we do not care when that contact client was born with an open and close. If the house has a birthday, like the day that it was built, you could definitely sync that over, but I highly doubt you're syncing that date into your follow-up boss account. So it kind of just depends on what custom fields you've built out underneath that contact within Follow Up Boss. If a lot of them are more specific to the deal, like the closing date, the purchase amount, the list price, the contract date, the commission values, those kinds of things, then yes, I would say definitely set up, a contact sync and sync those fields if you need to. But if they're more specific to like kids' names, pets' names, or number of pets, or spouse's name, or favorite food, or favorite sports team, whatever kind of personal data you're collecting about that particular client, you don't necessarily need to create that API mapping template with an open and close because that kind of information, not super crucial to us in open and close. We don't really need to know what kind of your TC doesn't need to know their favorite sport or their favorite sports team to be able to make sure that contract's going to go smoothly to close. Just as an example. Well, alrighty. Well, I don't have any more FAQs. And I didn't see any more questions. I could talk about a couple things that are coming down the pipeline. We're going to be having a couple webinars coming up this month. We'll post about them in Facebook, and we'll post about them within your open to close account. So you'll see that banner that we usually pop up at the top of your account. I definitely suggest joining us on those. I believe we're going to have a webinar with our workflow wizard again. We had a webinar with him. It was either last month or the month before that, just talking about what he can do for you guys as far as for webhooks. We're just going to have another one of those coming up because it's just been popular and people have been asking more about it. And then the other one, or I believe it's API and webhooks. And then the other one that we're going to be having is we're going to be having one talking about our pricing, because we're going to have some updates, not necessarily to the cost right now. I've not heard anything about the cost changing here. This is going to stay the same, but more of just some of the features that we have that are going to be new, and also talking about just, what does it look like to sign up for a Grow account, a Pro account, a Scale account? We have a lot of you guys asking us like, well, when do I know I need to upgrade to Scale? Or when do I know I need to upgrade to Pro, right? And so that's going to be what that like pricing webinar is going to be the focus with. There are also probably going to be a couple other sneak cool things that are going to come around with that. So I definitely suggest, whether you're a new user or you're a user who's been on the program for a while, definitely feel free to join us on that one as well, because that's just going to be a great call for you to be like, what am I not using? I'm on the Pro plan. What am I not using yet? Right? That's going to be a great call for that. Or you're on the Grow plan and you're like, I feel like I need to upgrade. Like I'm struggling with this and this and this, and I don't know whether this means that I should upgrade, or, like maybe, what's going on with the software? Is it something that I can do right now? That's what that pricing webinar is going to be really great for. We answer some of those questions on our Wednesday workshop, but having a focus group on just talking about the plans, the cost of the plans, the features on the plans, that's going to be super helpful for you guys. Like I said, I definitely would suggest everyone go ahead and go over to their person icon, go over to the changelog and take a look at the different changes that we've had. There's just been some updates to different areas within open to close where we were seeing some issues. If you were one of the affected users for the intake form conditions, some people were seeing some issues with it where they would fill out the fields, they'd say next. The intake form said, hey, go back, you need to fill out this field. And when they'd go back, all of the data that they entered into their form conditions would disappear. And so that's been corrected. So I want to announce it's been corrected, it's been fixed. If you are one of those users who was affected by it, definitely take a look at this list and see if there's anything else that may or may not have been changed. We are going to have another changelog coming out soon with some more updates on things that we're changing on the system. There's just going to be a couple more functionality, like use case functionalities that are going to be updated to open to close. I know you guys can see, some of my my testing that we've been doing in this account here, just with open to close. There's been a lot of we've talked about, a couple features on our Facebook group. So if you're not a part of our Facebook group, I definitely suggest joining us there. So that way you can see kind of sneak previews into those new features. But we're going to be having a couple things coming out in beta for this month. I should have more details for you guys either next Wednesday or the Wednesday following after that, just talking a little bit more about what we have going on. But other than that, if I don't have any questions, I can give you guys back 20 minutes of your time. I'll go ahead and just give it a couple more seconds. Feel free to get any other questions into the Q&A. Otherwise, I'm just going to go over my end of call spiel like I usually normally do. So go ahead and get those in there if you need to. As always, if you guys are looking for more support, maybe you have some other questions that came up after the fact, or you want to know a little bit more about any of the active beta programs that we have, feel free to reach out to us by chatting with us here. So you can just send us a message and say, hey, this is, what I'm wanting to do. Do you guys have any betas that have that or around that? Other than that, you can always send us an email at help@open2close. The other options that we have for kind of webinars is going to our Learn tab and going to webinars. Wednesday workshop is obviously our Wednesday workshop, but below that we have some on-demand webinars. This list is going to grow because we're going to be having so many features coming out. We're going to have a couple more webinars that are going to be here, just little quick, 15, 20-minute videos that just go over an overview of what the new feature is, how to use it, how to get started with it, kind of thing. And if you guys end up getting approved for any of our betas, you'll probably have a webinar or two that you'll want to go to just to get familiar with what the process is. Awesome. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in, so I'll go ahead and let you guys go for today. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Drink water, do some stretches, get some fresh air like I'm going to, and I will see you guys next week. Have a wonderful rest of your week.